Today we're chatting with Jacqueline Gates about truly becoming the director and the star of the movie that is your life, and through the power of your next future self, taking that life to a truly higher level. This is the law of attraction like you've never heard it before. Hey everyone, Andrew here, otherwise known as the guy who wrote the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, and I've got a very, very special guest. I met her recently. We were both on an interview session, LOA today, and I was just blown over by, just everything about her. She's just a great, warm person, and I figured it'd be a wonderful opportunity to share her insights and her vision with you. So just to kind of give you a little info about her, Jacqueline Gates is not your average coach. There's nothing average about her work or her story or her results, and that's because she believes there's nothing average about you either. With an eccentric mix of stagecraft, acting skills, housework, law of attraction, and powerful coaching, she can help you work out who you want to be, do, and have next, and begin living the life right now. She's the master of acting as if for real, which I can't wait to talk about. And obviously, that's a really important thing because that acting as if for real brings real life results that stick. So without any further ado, Jacqueline Gates, thank you so much for being here and welcome to my YouTube channel.
Thank you. Thank you. I am honored and delighted and thrilled to be invited. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so interesting because the concept of acting as if I've been, playing around with that myself, and we'll probably go down this road later in the conversation, but even escalating it to living as if, which I imagine you're kind of probably technically doing in your instruction for people, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. We'll get to that point. But the thing that, of all the things that really struck me, and I hope I don't butcher this, but that's why you're here. You can tell me if I'm getting it wrong. I think you were talking about something of a future self in the last conversation we were on.
Yeah.
And I figured it'd be a wonderful way to start this conversation about that concept, what that really means to you, and how that could apply to anyone in the context of law of attraction or really just improving their life in any way.
Yeah, it's your future self. So here's my basic premise after having been 25 years on stage. Your future self is a version of you that has or is doing or is living the life that you want, right? So that is the future self you're aiming at. And a lot of people see their future self as this far off vision. There's a lot of flux and life in between you on this timeline and over here. And so I tend to talk about your next future self. So for example, if you have $22 in your bank account and you want to become a millionaire, there's a lot of versions of you in between there. There's a lot of nexts. So your next future self may be somebody who has the funds to easily pay your bills. Right? That's the next future self. You're not worried about millionaire status. That millionaire status means that you also have the funds to easily pay your bills. But right moment, this is your future self that you're aiming for. And so when you have a version of yourself, from my perspective, when I found law of attraction and they said acting as if, it's like, oh yeah, I know how to do that because I can choose a role in a version of myself and I'll make that a role. And then I start scripting for her, changing her wardrobe, changing the way she shows up for things, changing her house, all these things that are stagecraft skills for this future self that I'm creating. So just like I'd create a role on stage, I took this future self and made a role and applied my acting skills to it. And so what was happening was I was, as you said, living as if I was that version of me, that future self, as much as was possible in my current reality. And what's so interesting about that is that you stop resisting your current reality, which is a big thing. You start being really grateful for the pieces of your reality that are already what you want. It's because we don't completely reinvent. We take parts of our life with us. So there's pieces that you can be grateful for now that you'll still be grateful for later. And then you start shifting your focus, which is part of the whole magic of law of attraction. You shift your focus to who you want to be, who you are becoming, how you are going to be living, so that less attention is available for resistance and, looking backwards or just arguing with your current reality, which is never really useful. So your future self in my world is a role you can create. And I have the stagecraft to help you do that. And it has to be both an inside and an outside job. You have to change your mindset, of course, but you also can speed things up by changing your environment, by changing your wardrobe, by changing your reality. When we met, the thing that struck me most was that when you were decided to be an author, you created your cover. That is exactly what I'm talking about. You became a person who had published a book with this cover long before you ever became the person who published that book. So
I
get it.
love this answer, Jackie, and there's so much to unpack here. And I think anyone watching right now, they can very tell, you're very heart-based, you're very inside who you are in a wonderful, warmth way, and you're exuding so much warmth. But by that same token, I can't help but notice and appreciate the strategy within this, strategically working in harmony with the law of attraction, with how the universe works. And what really struck me about your answer was that the feeling that I got is the whole thing of the person that has $22 to their name, and then there's that millionaire version. They disassociate themselves from that person without meaning to, by unintentionally seeing that as such a far off distant version, that it's actually a completely different person. And what I'm hearing from you here is find a version of yourself that actually feels like you, that's who you are, that there is an improvement, but you're basically painting and crafting the logical steps, the logical progression of getting in there. And I'm going to make an assumption here. My assumption is that as one does this, as they get a feel for it, they pick up momentum, and then they get to stretch further without even trying. There comes a point where your next future self is a deeper, it's a further leap, but it doesn't feel like a further leap because you're already accelerating. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, because the universe starts to conspire on your behalf. This is a vibrational and focus-based universe. So the more that you are focused on becoming that version of you, the more you get, things are attracted to support that vision of you. The more the quantum field, the universe will conspire literally on your behalf, and it starts to rearrange itself to make that version of you real. And so, and your next future selves, you'll have so many of them, but some of them can scoot past way fast, and you're going, like one of my future selves was somebody who is that is interviewed, because I love talking to people about everything. So when I show up for one, I'm showing up for all of them, because somebody out there also has a podcast, sees you and goes, I'll invite her. This is what happened when we ended up on Walt's thing. And I was a guest on Walt's podcast initially, before I became a co-host. So the quantum field will collapse. This is the physics of law of attraction. It will collapse the more you observe, and the more you're observing the version of you that you want to live life as, living as if, right? The more you're observing it in when you open your wardrobe door, when you open your eyes in the morning and you set up something to remind you of who you're becoming on your bedside table, this collaboration between your insides and your outsides, this is what theater does. And this is how we get there faster, because we're pointing all of our senses in the same direction. We're not arguing with what is. We are focused on what we desire and what we want.
I love this. So, one thing that's sticking out to me here is obviously, there's the aspect of this process and this unfolding that you, the person, puts into this. And then, of course, the quantum field or the universe does its part. And it's all a beautiful, a harmonic combination of things. And you were speaking of stagecraft, and I know, like, here, you are an expert, not only an expert in stagecraft for yourself, but also utilizing that among other modalities or other resources or tools to help people get from there to there, help people to more easily flow into their next future self. Now, my
Mhm.
question for you with that in mind is, given that you do help people, I imagine you encounter certain people where they will lie to themselves and they will fall for the illusion that they can't do what you do or other people do, that they can't engage in stagecraft at that level because they don't have all those years of experience. What do you say to them, or how do you help them? Like, where do you point them so that they can begin to engage in that process and realize that they are capable?
I would start by saying that the principle as above, so below, as within, so without functions regardless. So your outsides are already reflecting your insides. Somebody who believes they are clumsy will keep being clumsy because that's how we affirm an identity, right? So I can point out to them in a coaching session very gently and kindly, because being human is hard. It can be hard when we've landed in a reality that we would prefer not to be in. But nonetheless, it is a reflection. And when you see a reflection, if I look into the mirror and I don't like the lipstick that I see, I'm not going to rub the mirror. I'm going to have to look at the lipstick what I'm doing myself, right? And I think we are still co-creating. So this is not a bypassing. Everything that happens to you is co-created, and we have to take that on board. However, we have so much more responsibility that we can take on. How your bedside table works, how your kitchen looks, how your bathroom is, these are things that you can be at cause over. And they are reflections of you as an identity. So if you have, so for example, somebody who says, I'm dreadful with finances. Well, you look inside their purse and it's full of old receipts. You look at, checkbooks that are not balanced or whatever. They have never created a spreadsheet, or they don't even have an accounting book, whatever it is. These are outside affirmations that they are dreadful with finances, right? So if we give them a small affirmation, an outside proof, evidence of a future self that is better with their finances. So maybe they clear out the handbag, they sort out the receipts. Maybe they decide from today, we're going to check our bank balance every day. That's all I'm going to do. Just check my bank balance every day so I know how much is in it. That's it. That is an outside action of somebody who is better with their finances than they used to be. You see, so you are very slowly using an outside-inside dance to prove their affirmations right. Because our brain will always try and prove us right. No matter, what you tell the world you are, you will live to prove. Because your brain is an affirming computer. That's what it does. It's confirmatory bias. In the minute it forms some opinion about something, it'll run and curate every last experience you've ever had to prove itself right. Doesn't matter whether you actually are right or not, but you will attract all the evidence you need to prove yourself right. So if you choose then to be right about something that feels more helpful, your brain will do the same thing. Right? It's like a gratitude practice. When you start looking, I have so much in my life to be grateful for, your brain goes, oh, really? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, we can be grateful for this, we can be grateful for that. And it starts to pull it all together. And the more your attention, that's the quantum physics, the more your attention goes, the more energy will flow and the more you'll get of that thing.
There's so much gold in your reply there. It's funny. My frustration as an interviewer is listening to all these bits of gold. I'm like, okay, how do I cherry pick and shine the best spotlight on the best things here?
Well,
But
I'll just have to come back. That's
yeah,
all
we're
there
just gonna
is
have to
to it.
keep having you come back here. And one thing, probably more than one thing, but the thing I want to start with here that you said was so profound, and to me was interesting because you just said it in a sentence and you kept going. But this profound thing of if you don't like your lipstick in the mirror, you don't start fixing the mirror. And that's such a profound idea and concept because people do that in their lives all the time. But then in the same sentence, you started articulating how to not do that, which I loved. And it basically, everyone that's seen The Dark Knight, they know, like, Heath Ledger's role of a lifetime was the Joker. Harrison Ford got to be Indiana Jones and Han Solo, and Mark Hamill was Luke Skywalker. There's actors that had these roles of a lifetime, and it's apparent to me that everybody in this world has their own opportunity, their choice opportunity to live their role of a lifetime and to continue to choose roles by choosing to play their next future self. That's literally the role of their lifetime because it's meant for them, it was destined for them, and it gets them on that path where, you mentioned slow at first, which to me implies eventual and probably faster than you realize acceleration into all the things that you want.
But you have to get rid of the debris of who you've been, right? So you can change identity in a thought. You can become somebody in a nanosecond, but our universe doesn't work that way. We're not bibbity boppity boo and boom, I'm in a ball gown, right? It doesn't work that way. You have to wait for reality to catch up, to reorganize itself. It's there that the strength of your focus is so important, that you keep reminding yourself, you keep planting evidence of that future that you want, of the role that you're playing. And so, yeah, and it's also interesting, you mentioned Heath Ledger. There are actors who disappear into a role, and I always talk about immersion, right? You become this person. And then there are other actors, like, God bless him, the guy who played Chandler Bing, Matthew Perry, who is Matthew Perry regardless. I mean, it doesn't matter what show he's in, he's always Matthew Perry, right? And there are plenty of actors. Kirk Douglas was another one. John Wayne, always really John Wayne. He's not going to be a Dustin Hoffman where he's Tootsie or he's Hook or he's the Rain Man. He's not disappearing into a role, right? So when we understand that the law of attraction is all about where we put our focus, we can put our focus on all the little pieces of a role that point in the same direction. We're not fighting ourselves. We're not arguing with the external. We're just keeping our focus on what we want. It becomes the role of a lifetime. But as Shakespeare said, in his day, a man will play many roles. And what we forget, I think, especially as civilized humans, is that we have the choice. We can change roles. We can choose to be anything that we decide we are. And it needn't look like anybody else, but there's always one thing, one role that is yours alone. And I will always say to a client, they say, I want to be this, I want to be this way. And I will always say, congratulations, you've got the part. Because unless you are a vibrational match for that thing, you don't want it, right? It wouldn't be in your awareness. This is how our universe works. Because you're a vibrational match for it, your attention is going there. So if you want it, the chances are you can have it. You can work towards it. You can have something that looks like that. It looks like you in that situation. So there's always the individuality, but we can become that thing that lights us up. It's when we fight to become something that doesn't light us up that we get ourselves sideways.
I'm not a coach like you are. I'm more identify as an author. That's just me. But through the way I teach and the way I present my content, I'm a huge proponent of, when the opportunity is there, injecting a sense of fun into this process in order to create momentum. And I get that feeling from you that you do that same in your work, but correct me if I'm wrong. But if you do, in what ways would you suggest people can inject a sense of fun in the stagecraft, in the embodying that role of that next future self as they move forward in that process?
Well, to me, it's always about curiosity. It's like, if it could look like exactly what I want, what would that be? And that really is fun. So I'll suggest things like going onto Pinterest and seeing things that, when you're thinking about your future self and that image comes up and you go, oh, that, and you're going, really? Okay. And you'll start curating pictures that something pings, and it's playful and it's curious and it's alluring, it's pulling you forward. And then you go back and you don your anthropologist sort of investigatory hat and you go, okay, so what is it about this picture? What makes me all excited about it, right? So for example, I have one with a wardrobe, clothing that makes me swoon, and interiors that make me swoon. And when I did this last time for my latest iteration, what I noticed was, firstly, short hair. At the time, I had hair down way past my shoulders. And I was very into the sort of Victoriana. My apartment looked like a Victorian bed and breakfast. And so I did this and I was feeling terribly stifled. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to see what my next self wants. And I opened a new Pinterest board and I started pulling out short asymmetrical hairdos and big earrings. And then suddenly there was no Victoriana in my pictures. There was all quirkiness and urban type feeling and views, cityscape views. It caught me by surprise. It took me 6 months to rearrange my reality to be that, and 4 trips to the hairdresser because I kept backing out. So I'd make her take like 2 inches off and then another 2 inches. And then finally I get there and I go, here we are. Took us a while, but I am what I saw in my Pinterest board. So these are ways that we play. And playfulness is something that is woefully lacking in most self-improvement circles, because even just self-improvement, it sounds like so, like there's bound to be some work in it. And I think that if we are playful and curious about who we could be if we really wanted to, if we just gave ourselves full permission. So part of my titling is that I am a walking permission slip. I really am. I'm all for eccentricity. I'm all for you being as thoroughly you as possible. And your job is to find out what that is and push the edges and get playful and have fun with it. So one of my clients this last weekend went on a micro adventure. She decided to just drive to a part of the city, she lives in a huge city, that she'd never visited, and walk around like a tourist. She had the best time, all COVID correct, and hardly cost her anything. She found a restaurant she didn't know was there. She found museums that she didn't know were there, had the best time. And it was all done in this playful, I am an explorer type mindset that she was trying to create, but obviously COVID and the pandemic and stuff means she can't travel around the globe, but she's got portions of her own city she hasn't seen yet. So this is how we do it. Injecting the fun is the playfulness, the curiosity, the what if. I mean, what if you really did get the part of the role of a lifetime? What are you wearing? What are you going to have for breakfast? How do you get up in the morning? How does that version of you live their life?
It's so interesting to hear you say that. Ideas coming in my brain that are so random, like even as you said, what if, this will probably come out 3 or 4 days after this recording, but today, I guess to date it and put myself under accountability to publish this, Disney Plus launched this series called What If, where they had all these possibilities of like, okay, all those movies, those Marvel movies that you're used to, what if this critical detail happened instead, and it's a whole different thing. And it's almost like hearing you say that everyone can become their own permission slip, their own walking permission slip to play the what if game and actually enter that reality. Like, what if it finally is the time for that business that you've been wanting to finally, just rocket off the ground and have an incredible success? What if it's finally time for that book to be launched and released and get all the 5-star rave reviews and become a New York Times bestseller? Like, what if all these things? And I love where you have that sense of curiosity and that sense of adventure, because I can really feel that. And not that anyone should follow the way you do it or the way I do it. Although I do think when we can share the way we do certain things that lead to success, I think it leaves clues or gives people inspiration to try something. With that
Yes.
in mind, because you mentioned scripting before, I'm curious if you could describe or articulate what is your experience, what it's like for you to script, whether it's your mindset, whether it's what you get in the middle of it, whether it's results or success stories. What's it like for you scripting with the knowledge and understanding that you have about yourself and about the universe around you?
I see scripting as my future self writing a memoir. So I will write in what I call past future tense or future past tense. I suppose that works better. Whereas I'll start and I'll say, I am Jackie, and it is August 11th, 2022. I've just finished my first retreat in Bali. I'm just winging it here, but I will write it, and then I ask myself questions from who I am now. How did you get there? What did you do first? What did you change? So my scripting is often conversational between me and my future self. And to that end, I have 3 pens. I have one for my current self, and this is my business muse. My business has a spirit of her own. It is an entity, an energetic entity, and I like her to have, like you mentioned, warmth, eccentricity, glamour. These are the things that she embodies. It's what makes my business different to everybody else's. And then this is my future self. And so I may ask a question, and I allow myself the playfulness of having a different version of me answer. Writing in future past tense puts you out further along your timeline and gives you a different perspective. You can reverse engineer the result you want by going to that result and working backwards. My first law of attraction mentor, Jeanette Moore, she has an ebook called Pray Rain Journaling. And that is pretty much what it was. It's the story of a guy who really they needed rain, and he went out into the dustiest part of the fields and stood there and was feeling the rain. He just said, this is how I'm going to feel when the rain comes, and I can hear it, I can feel it on my skin. You can hear it hitting the hard earth first, and then it makes puddles, and then it starts, and the relief and the cooling of the air, I can feel all that. And he wrote it all down, he felt it all, and it rained within 12 hours. So that is the myth, the story, but the scripting works. When you start writing, words are spells. That's why they're called spelling. It's okay, so that's really fun. But when you start writing, there is an energetic weight that is added to your thoughts, right? It's a mechanical action. It has other people's attention or even just your attention again, but it takes your thoughts and puts them into another energetic dimension. It adds impetus to them. So scripting is one of the things that I think can transform your life in ways that you probably don't expect because you haven't got there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny when I'm remembering the conversation that we had when, I was on Walt's show and you were there and you were showing and saying all these cool things. And I was like, I've got to have her on. The thing where you brought up the different pens, I had forgotten it. And now I'm glad that we got to that part, because I think that's such a critical detail, in that I don't call it a required detail. I don't call anything a required detail, but it's so powerful. These small details are actually so big when you are giving yourself the permission. It's like, okay, this is a different color that I'm writing in. It's engaging your energy and your attention in such a different way. And I was curious as you were describing the pen thing. And again, not that anyone should follow a cue, but I'm just curious. Do you decide what pen you're going to pick up, or is the decision kind of made for you when you're doing this?
I'm going to say both and be vastly ambiguous. It becomes very fluid, like a conversation. If one of them has something to say, that's when, and I've had times where I start writing in one pen and go, oh, look, this is not the right pen, and I'll just change it. And so, but it is, initially when I started right at the very beginning, I have a blog post somewhere, I should dig it up, but I started in a coffee shop because I was so frustrated with how my life was going and how my business was going at the time. And I said, if I could talk to the end of the year, at that time, it was December 2018, if I could talk to her, I would want to know. And I wrote out this question. And then I picked up a different pen. It wasn't one of these three, but I picked up another pen and I went, and then I would answer. And I started writing in this other pen. And somehow that just gave me the perspective shift that I needed. And I think because, we have to, we can't stay in our heads. As much as we'd like to think we just think about things, we have to translate them to action. And even the small action of translating, of picking up a different pen, it can be just that little tweak that you need to, to start looking at something from a different perspective.
Love it.
When I was doing my LOA story involves $4,500 worth of debt from network marketing companies that didn't work. But I went to work at Starbucks to pay that off because it was just like I had to do something to be able to pay off this debt, and something that wasn't a network marketing company. And at that time, I was just sharing on YouTube everything I was going through, everything that I was working on, everything I was thinking about. And it's the start of my own LOA nesting and my own body of work. But one time I sat down to talk and I thought, I can't do this. I am sounding not myself. There's just no power in my words. And I realized I was still in my Starbucks uniform, my white shirt and my black trousers. And there was something about that uniform that wasn't me. I am so not uniform, as you can tell. So I went and I got changed and I put on my kimono and my big earrings and I put the red lipstick on and I zhuzhed my hair and I sat down and boom, I now had something to say that didn't sound from underneath. It didn't sound whiny and woe is me. It sounded like, okay, I'm in this situation and here's how I'm fixing it. It's a different energy set, and it came from a wardrobe change. And I have used suggested wardrobe changes and pen changes and place changes. If you want to feel more wealthy than you do right now, go to where the wealth is. I hang out in 4-star hotel lobbies all the time because that's where the money is. That's where I can feel like a globetrotter, right? So I will go and sit in a if I'm feeling blocked or just I have an attack of the ordinaries, which is how I refer to them. I know I'm not ordinary, but sometimes it's like, oh, I need a boost of oomph somewhere. So I will take my journals and I will head off and I'll sit in a lobby with a cup of coffee and pretend I've just arrived from somewhere exotic. And in that mindset, everything gets released, all the blocks get dissolved. You can see things from a different perspective. We like to think that when we're doing, especially, when we're trying to change our lives, we think we need only do our thoughts. We do need to do our thoughts, but it is an internal and external dance. Your thoughts become things, and your things can influence your thoughts. So go to where it feels like how you want to feel.
It's so interesting to hear you say this. Again, you're bringing up memories in me that I hadn't thought about in years, because I remember, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago now, I was in a mastermind with these awesome people. And at the time, everyone was located in New York, like either in or close to Manhattan. And half the group has since, spread out across the country. But when we were there and we first met, we met at the car club on the West Side, surrounded by all these high-end, super rare, super expensive cars. And then when we couldn't go there anymore because someone had moved too far uptown, we went to an expensive hotel lobby also. And I think it's so interesting the way we were intuitively doing these things, but there's a real purpose behind it. It gives you that sense of abundance, that sense of, not, again, nothing as a requirement, but just as an incredible strategic, emotional, energetic advantage of, no, this isn't me. I am embracing this. Not the Starbucks uniform, but the awesome, loud, in your face earrings and everything else, because that's who I am and that's how I emote who I am the best. And I love the way you're affirming this, because I think right now in this conversation, I would hope you're giving people a lot of clues as to many things they can do, big or small, that can really engage and use that stagecraft and get in that mode. And it could be something as small, not that it is small, as dressing in the very best thing they've got in their closet and recording the videos of themselves, whether they're going to publish or not, in that attire.
Exactly. I was working with a mastermind buddy, and she said, I really want to be on the podcast of this, like the top person in our coaching society at the time. And I said, cool. So what will you wear when you record that? And she went, oh my God, I don't know. I should find that. And so, so every time she recorded a podcast after that, she was dressed as if she was going to be interviewed for this top range podcast. And it happened within 2 or 3 months. And she said that change of costume, because she was just wearing her sweats and her t-shirt to talk, she was more involved in what she was saying than the vibe behind what she was saying. And any actor will tell you that a performance will deepen as you get to dress rehearsal. We all start in just, yoga pants and t-shirts, and we're walking around the set and whatnot. But the minute we get into dress rehearsal, that's when you change. I used to love watching it when we did Shakespeare, because you take a modern woman who's used to walking in jeans and, and you put her into a corset and acres of skirt, and suddenly she can't bend or run the way she used to. And the men hold themselves differently when they have a sword on their hip, when they've got padded jackets and skinny tights and boots up past their knees. They walk differently, they carry themselves differently, and then the words make sense because you are being it as opposed to pretending. So yes. That's why it used to drive me crazy when people say fake it till you make it. Nah, we humans are way too smart for that. We know a fake. It's like they say, go to your nearest Lexus dealer and test drive. Any Lexus salesman worth his salt knows that you're pretending. You can smell it a mile off. And that's often because you're heading for a future self that's too far out of your current reality. Go to something closer. Dress up as the very best version of you that is closest to that, not best as in a quantifiable, but closest to. And that's where you are believable, because you believe it for yourself. It may only be a teeny tiny belief right now, but it's more believable than you having millions, right? It's not so big of a jump. It's your next future self. Dress for that, show up as that, speak as that version of you.
I love that.
And you'll get that.
And one extra piece, because I think, clothing, again, what a wonderful resource, a wonderful tool, a wonderful strategic advantage. Also, like even me, I have plans for myself where there are certain high profile shows that I'm looking forward to going on to. My dress rehearsals for those are every podcast I go on where I am dressing myself in the energetic intention of giving the most bang for their buck, the most value I possibly can in every answer, in every word, in every moment that I'm on that show. It's my goal to be like, okay, when I'm done with this, everyone's gonna say, well, that's an awesome podcast, but if you really want a great episode, check out Andrew's. And I wear that suit of energy and intention in every single interview. And that this really resonates as you're saying that, because the clothing has an impact, the energy has an impact, the intent has an impact. They all have impacts in and of themselves, but also can be combined for a cumulative, really powerful punch that can really get you further. And again, I believe gets you to reach more easily into further extensions of your next future self.
Yeah, because it's who you are, actually. You're not pretending to be somebody. You are that. You're just deepening into the role. You're exploring, you're immersing yourself into it. So your current self disappears almost, and this future self becomes more real. And that's what we're after, right? And then one day you look at yourself and you go, holy crap, look, I am who I thought I wanted to be 6 months ago or 3 months ago or whatever it is. And then you start the whole dance again, and it's fun.
Yeah. And the best times are even, it's like, not only am I that person, oh my God, I've been that person for like 3 weeks. This is so cool.
Yes, right. You look at yourself and, oh, so this is who we are now. Okay.
Yeah, I guess we're going with it.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm enjoying this conversation way too much because we're almost out of time here. Like time is flying. There's one question I did want to make sure to ask you here because I knew that you were going to take us down some really wonderful roads, but you know, at the same time, we're technically constricted by the questions I've been asking. So I'm wondering, is there something that you were hoping to share or you're just inspired to share that we've not gotten to in this conversation, but that you think would be really valuable for people to hear?
I think we've covered a lot. Just the clear, if you're working on law of attraction, which is why we're here, the clearer you can be on what you want to attract, the better your attraction, the better the law can work for you, the better can conspire to support you, right? And so this is where, don't forget your outsides. Don't forget your outsides. If you keep having to argue with your outsides and your inside identity is different, it's exhausting. It's way more energy. You can rather put that towards agreeing with what you see.
Yes.
So something as simple as, I keep tabs of what I spend by doing this little tiny thing each day. Every time you open your wallet, you see affirmation of that. These are the teeny tiny outside tweaks that allow the law of attraction to get really behind what you want, because it takes away the static on the line. It takes away the distractions, and it allows you to focus. And above all, this is a focus universe.
Love it. And obviously I mean, people can tell just by watching, you are a wonderful coach. You've got a lot of wonderful ideas here. If anyone watching wants to connect with you or work with you or any kind of possibility, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
They can reach me at jacquelinegates.com, or they can just go and have a look on jacquelinegates.com with a hyphen. I'm also on Facebook a lot, so there's that option too. My website, I will just say, is currently under construction. It's very old era, so it's also getting reinvented. But the contact page is there, and the coaching page is there, and we can always just have a chat about how I will be able to help you live as your future self a little sooner than you think you can right now, by just acting as if.
I love it. And you know, you kind of segueing into the perfect way for my last question for you, because you're talking about getting there faster. Just based on what you know about yourself and the journey that you've been on, if you could go back in time to any period of time, to any younger version of yourself, and give that Jacqueline, give her some key insight of stagecraft advice that would accelerate her journey at any point, what would you say to her?
It's so interesting, because my first awareness of this body of work, that I have this weird connection of housework and acting and law of attraction and all that only happened when The Secret came out. So if I could go back and change something, I would ask Rhonda Byrne to publish that sooner. So that I could find it, because really that was the first time that I had an awareness that my thoughts did create things, and I could act as if, and I could be both the director and the star of the show that I'm in, right? The show of my life. And I can script it exactly how I want it. And, you know, it's a collaborative thing. I'm not working alone. I can work with the whole energetic universe, and that would have been very cool. But the self that I am most proud of initially is that she didn't just read the book and nod her head and not do anything. She read the book, she started, I mean, at that time I bought the DVD and I had the book and I had the Audible on my, on a cassette in my car, because that's how we did it back then. And I was immersed. And the more I listened, the more I found ways to put it on my outsides, the way I was thinking in my insides. And that's, my life transformed itself in 6 months. And that's a whole different story. But I completely changed my life in 6 months of immersing. So you people out here, you may have heard brilliant things from this episode and from other stuff Andrew said, but if you just nod and go, oh, that's good, and do nothing else, it's no good. It's not going to happen. You have to translate it into some part of your beingness, your doing and your having, if you want everything to change. So that's my piece.
Jacqueline Gates, you have been such a wonderful guest. This is, by the way, this is the reason why I've been looking forward to this. Like,
I'm so glad.
I've been looking forward to, because I know schedules, both of us were so busy. I've been waiting to make this recording happen because I knew it'd be so high value. So thank you so much for making time to come on and to share your insight and your perspective on this content, on how people can really level up their life through stagecraft and through everything else that you teach. I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been so fun.